All right, we're going to keep going. Emerging cannabis cultivation technology, right? The rise of the machines. It's beautiful. You don't have to stand there just staring at your plants anymore. And here to lead this amazing all-star panel that we have, one of the managing partners from Cultivator. There he is. Let's hear it for Sunny Marinouth. Yes. Yeah, close enough.
Yes, thank you very much, ICBC, Alex Rogers, that we can be here, and welcome to our amazing panel over here. Actually, the title of the panel is Cannabis Cultivation Technology, but we will not only talk about cultivation, but also a little bit of analysis, so post-harvest activities. For the people who don't know me, I'm Sonny Moerenhout, one of the owners of Cultivators. We help growers, investors, all the way from the business plan, facility design, and starting up the facility, and then rolling into cultivation support. Active globally, and what we also do is a lot of research and education in the Netherlands. So we have a research location where we work with partners like Affluence, but also Growth and BioBest, really big companies on cultivation research. And one of the things we like is also to spread this knowledge to everybody here, but to everybody in the cannabis world, because together we can grow. That's how we should approach it. Don't keep it secret, but teach each other. And that's what we're gonna talk about today as well, new technologies. Let's start with a quick introduction. Rui.
So my name is Rui Soares. I'm founder and CEO of Paralab. We are a company devoted to distribution and manufacturing of equipment. In cannabis world, we are in business for 33 years. Of course, not in cannabis. Medical cannabis in Europe is 6 years, 7 years, since 2018 in Portugal. We entered in cannabis world because of extraction. We were doing this before. But somehow growers end up pushing us to the post-harvest equipment. We are comfortable in this area, is equipment. We are not on the production area. Agriculture area is not where we feel comfortable. So from the moment you cut a plant, post-harvest, from bucking, trimming, sorting, drying, decontaminating, and packaging, we are one full stop. We operate at all Europe level, Africa, and Latin America.
Yes. Sabrina, there's no microphone? Yes.
I do have a mic, yes. My name is Sabrina Carvalho. I work for Fluence. We develop LEDs for growing cannabis. And most of my job is in between the world of research, where we develop all the technology and test all the technology, but also on the support of clients, where we help with the growth and how to best utilize the LEDs for getting the best results possible.
My name is Chris Crosby. I'm the founder, chief operating officer, and master grower of Atlantic Cultivation. We're one of the largest privately held license holders in Canada. We're also vertically integrated, so we own a retail chain as well, and then sell across Canada and internationally.
Thank you. Alexander.
Hello, so I'm Alexander Gauthier. I'm the VP of R&D at Origin Nature. We're a licensed producer in Quebec. We produce 10 tons per year. We're full GACP. We sell only in Quebec and international, so we dispatched 3 tons this year and also successfully got paid for it. We got a couple awards in the Canadian industry, including Greatest Place to Work in Canada and only cannabis company to be on that list. We're very proud of what we do, and we're very proud to have our product internationally, so in Europe.
All right, thank you guys. I think we have a cool combination from Europe and North America together, so we can compare the different areas in the world with each other. And we were just discussing in the back about quality of cannabis, and in, typically we were talking about also new decontamination technologies. It's a hot topic, I hear from you guys, so what is happening in that field?
Okay, contamination is actually a very hot top field. So the ideal is not to have the product contaminated. This go from you know, it starts not in my area, but I cannot speak much, but the right genetics, irrigation systems and so on, all of these makes a difference if not having contaminations, designing of the rooms, but even so, there is always room, and who tells me that never had contaminations, I truly don't believe. They are not measuring it. So there are technologies nowadays that in production area help to reduce the risk of contamination by eliminating the pathogens, like 96, 98% of the pathogens present in the room, in the air, in walls, ceilings, and of course at the surface of plants. These technologies are producing compounds that somehow eliminate pathogens, either by oxidation, either by electron exchange neutralizing the surface of the pathogens. There are techniques that produce continuously very low concentrations, 0.05 ppm, 0.1 ppm of hydrogen peroxide, ozone, and hydroxyl groups, oxide chain radicals. All of these compounds will, in different ways, eliminate 96 to 98% of pathogens in the air. This is not a silver bullet. You have to work perfectly with all cares. This just improved chances not to have contaminations. This is on prevention. Yeah. If it goes wrong, there are new technologies. Irradiation has always been the main top technique to reduce the bioburden in contaminated flour, but now by the new regulations in Germany that don't forbid but want the product to be labeled as irradiated, and this has a bad market perception. New technologies are appearing with excellent results in terms of preserving the flour quality and having up to 6 log reduction, which is great.
Okay, how do you look at that, Chris, from a cultivation point of view?
I mean, having a clean product starts from your processes and all the way back to your facility design. You really want to make sure you have closed loop systems with positive pressure. Reducing your people movements, make sure they're meaningful, PPE. If there is any risk, like our facility has showers, so even if somebody grows at home, they have to actually take a shower before they go into the grow room. So a lot of people don't do that in Canada. Post-harvest can have a lot to do with it, but you know, minimalizing how much you touch the product, which is also important for, you know, keeping your trichomes present and handling the product. In our experience, we have passed every country so far's limits for total yeast and mold count. Typically, we'll be well below 500 total yeast and mold count. We've had COAs from Eurofins and other places that are non-detectable. So we haven't had to go through that step of any post-process like sanitization or post-harvest. But it's also something that's part of the commercial supply chain within international cannabis as well. If you have GACP flower like us, there are some clients that do the final mile through radiation, and then that actually qualifies it to be washed into EU GMP and allows it to go into more markets. So it may not be out of the necessity of the biomass or the flower itself, but a lot of times the commercial pathway into different markets, it's one of the easiest steps for them to turn it into EU GMP.
Yeah. And what about you, Alexander? How you look at it?
I think the question is more understanding what you're setting out to do, in the sense that if you're growing indoor and you need to irradiate, you have a serious problem that is in your process, right? So if you're setting out to do a greenhouse or an outdoor field where you can't necessarily control contamination and you're destining your product to extraction or other, absolutely irradiation will be part of the process. So when you set out to decide if you're going to be doing an outdoor, a greenhouse, a full indoor, hybrid, etc., you need to understand to who you're going to be selling that product to. Do they accept irradiation? Does the final product I want my crop to be transformed into comply with those regulations? Does it need to be irradiated? Let's say if you do certain type of extraction, you can pretty much sterilize the product as it's being extracted. So understanding more your game plan and sticking to it is more going to determine the irradiation, but there will most likely always be a need for irradiation as long as there's outdoor crop.
Yeah. And is there a role for lights in there, in that process?
There is, actually.
Sabrina?
Yes. The situation, What we need to see with growing is that, like they were mentioning, how you grow it is fundamental. So with LEDs and other types of light, we change the environment. So if we put a lot more intensity, less intensity, the type of light you have, the type of light that brings heat into the rooms or not, how your air circulates, how your dehumidification goes, how you trim your plants if you need to trim, all of that is affected by the light source that you are using. So often when a grower would contact us saying that indeed everything is going fine, but they have this or that, we normally go in and track their climate. We track their air circulation. We track where the spots are that we need to fix. And often with LEDs, what we say is that you are separating light from heat compared to other light sources. So it does help often to mitigate part of the problem when we know how to use them. Don't change your light source and expect that the next cycle will be better. It is a transition. You need to learn how the air circulates again, how everything circulates and dehumidifies and so on. It's a process, but gets you there. And afterwards, under control, with the right LEDs, you get more resistance in your plants and you can get better results because you can break the factors apart. So we work a lot with that, yes.
Yeah. And I think we talked about it earlier as well, changing from SON-T towards LEDs. What are the biggest pitfalls you see?
The biggest ones that I see is the air circulation and dehumidification. Most times people underestimate that with HPS light you have a lot of heat radiation. So the way the transpiration of the plant is happening is much different from an LED. And then the air circulation is underestimated. You don't need to see your plants flying around, but normally for me, when I see that the plants are moving a lot and that you have a lot of venting going on, you're trying to correct for an air circulation issue. And that is normally something that we come in to help out on how we can balance that out without getting into drastic complications. Why do we worry about that? Because it is fundamental. If you have a crop growing on the last weeks of flowering, they are swelling big flowers, you want buds that are right structure and so on. You will hear me as an LED plant specialist asking how is the root pressure. And everybody's like, what? Why are you asking me that? And I was like, well, because you're turning lights on, your irrigation needs to be on point, your transpiration needs to be on point. If that is not on point, you will crack your flowers and molds will come into those cracks. That's how you get a wound in your skin, is the same concept. So we have all of that into our mindsets on how to help our clients call their attention to these nuances of how to transition from one type of light to another. Because it's fundamental, so that you avoid, hopefully, part of those contaminations and that are unnecessary, yeah.
Yeah, finding the right balance, how you need to grow. Everything is correlated to each other.
Right.
And actually, yeah, you're mentioning a good point. Is the last week before harvest, a lot of things can still go wrong. And we will also talk about testing, quality of testing, Rui, earlier when we met together. And one of the things is microbial tests as well for your flower. And we know that certain labs say and claim, yeah, we can give you the results within a day, but we were talking with the old-fashioned method with petri dishes. That is just not possible. But you mentioned that there are some new innovations or new techniques that could be used if we all agree on how to move forward, correct?
Yes, it's actually in the market for several years. It's based in PCR, actually quantitative PCR or real-time PCR. Exactly the same technology used for the COVID tests, and is using a lot on diagnostic blood analysis, this technology. So in many areas on the medical spectrum is already used. So, and since 5-6 years now that there are solutions to have a complete screening of molds, bacteria, microbes, and viruses with results on the same day. Because basically this is molecular biology technology, so you are measuring fragments of DNA of each pathogen, so that to recognize the presence of the pathogen, and also to measure the concentration of these fragments of DNA, so that you can make a quantification. So you can then make a kind of a calibration to have in CFUs per gram or per milliliter. Just a few bacteria will need a small incubation period of 1 day to finish the complete report in terms of microbiological contaminations. It works now, and there are, I'm informed that there are a panel of experts analyzing this to maybe include this on the pharmacopoeia, so that become also a method of that is good enough for product to release, as it is now not being approved by pharmacopoeia, is good for process control after validation with the primary plaking and counting classical methodology.
Yeah, so to make it clear, it's not possible yet within the pharmacopoeia to use this method at this moment.
But you can use in process control, especially if you have a large facility in which, if you lose one room, it's a big, big loss. So to do regular daily analysis or every few days, having early detection of disease is very important. So, and with these techniques, you can detect the presence of a disease well before being visible.
Okay. You want to say, Chris?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind commenting on just the relationship between any type of lighting source and your VPD and the pressure in the rooms and then plant health. That's critical in all the way to your facility design. So for us, we use a glycol heat recovery loop. So in Newfoundland, it's quite cold, but we use HPS lights, which give off quite a bit of heat, and that's that relationship with your PPFD, the heat, and your humidity. So we absorb that heat and re-eject it into the rooms. But if you change anything in that scenario, if you go, say, to a full LED and you don't realign your rooms for the vapor pressure, then your plant's health, if it's too low, becomes susceptible to things like botrytis, PM, if anybody were to bring it into your room, because it exists everywhere. Plant health is genetics and plant health overall, and supporting it through VPD is really one of your first safeguards, making sure that doesn't dip too low in the plant health and become susceptible to systemic pathogens. But to do that, you can look at your environmental systems that are fairly integrated, that control your heat, your humidity, and your lights on and off, and your DLI and your PPFD. But until you actually kind of validate that in itself and get in there with anything like a flare camera, look at the actual temperature of the leaves and the true VPD of the environment versus the plants, you really need to start at that ground level and then dial everything in. And then, of course, if you do start changing your lights, adding more of the same lights, removing HPS for LED in a mixed spectrum or going full LED, so many things change in the relationship with your temperature and your humidity, and you have to realign and start that process again and make sure your VPD is always on point, which that is one of these processes that start before that can help you with not having to remediate flower at your end product. It starts in day one in the grow room and every batch.
Yeah, you're completely correct. Let's go, moving back to the topic of this panel, new cultivation techniques. Actually, something what we have done over the last few years together with our research partner in the Netherlands, in EXO, doing trials with no veg period. And for some people, it's really disruptive. Whoa, what are you doing? Is that possible? With certain varieties, it is possible, but you need to be on point with your mother plants and your cloning. If you're not fully on top of that, you cannot do that. And we always start with our clients lowering the total veg time as a first step, so that you also have smaller plants, easier post-harvest. So there's just one thing in new cultivation techniques. What other aspects, Alexander, you looking into lately in regards to cultivation?
Well, I mean, when we're looking at true emerging technology, there is a lot of automation coming. I'm falling in love with a lot of automation. I'm falling in love with AI. So one of my greatest pleasure recently that unfortunately didn't end well was with a company called Neatleaf. Neatleaf unfortunately went out of business due to some shareholder disputes, but it was a little drone, the same drone that you see in a stadium. It's wired by 4-wire to all the corner, and that little drone had a camera, a VPD camera, temperature sensors, all the sensors you want in the world, and it would scout 24/7 my rooms. It would do 3D renditions of the climate, heat map of the climate. Their team would meet with my team every week. So that level of supervision of the crop and detection and scanning at all time was just to another level, and we're just starting to get into that. Same thing for the fertigation. Everything that's how we're understanding the plant. There's a company in France that has a technology where literally the plant itself is changing the climate and the fertigation to steer it to its own perfect needs. So we're quickly gearing towards a world where we don't have to guess anymore, and all the data we've been dreaming of as growers that would normally require us to basically live in the grow room is going to come within our hand, and it's finally giving us outlook on things that we were theorizing about. So those new integration of technology that can then be put through the higher, I would say, resources of AI come out with quite impressive results, right? We went from, the saying of 3 pounds a light to 100 gram per square feet or 1,000 gram per square meter of dry trim flower that can be used, right? So we're entering a whole new category of what we thought was possible, and it's all in what we learned from the legacy that is now being mixed with those new emerging technology for an amazing results.
Just on the comment on the lower veg time, I mean, people certainly strive to do that, so you can have more cycles, more crops per year, more total annual output that defrays the total cost of your fixed, cost that you have on overhead and probably the size of your cultivation team. But first and foremost, you have to understand what the plant wants, and that can be genetics based to some degree. But most importantly, looking at root health for any cultivar. So if you're trying to eliminate any massive amount of time out of veg, which we've tried to do many times, you really got to look at the size of the media that you're using for the total amount of roots that you're going to grow. You don't want to be, say, in a 6x6 Hugo block from Grodan or something like that and give it, right out of the clone room 1 week. That's on the low side. We've gone that far, but until you see the roots with some peripheral growth coming to the outside of the cube and also going start to the bottom, once you flip it into 12-12 and start that hormonal response to get into the stretch phase and start bulking, you're really losing out on the amount of roots that you should have at that point. So you got to look at techniques that do allow you to eliminate veg, such as lowering your media size to a 4x4x2 or things like that. But you can get into a lot of trouble with the end product and the overall plant health through your roots throughout the life cycle if you're not aware.
Yeah, but lowering the substrate volume has another impact as well. And if you want to steer and have a lot of options in irrigation with your fertilizer.
Exactly. Steering is so critical just for your final output on yield and driving the plant as hard as you can. And unless you have enough root mass and the size of the media to dial in your shot sizes and the total dryback in that media itself, it becomes almost impossible to stay saturated for too long. So when you're getting into your P2 phase for a hard dryback and you don't have the root mass to support the total media size, you're not really going to be able to drive the plants.
Yeah. And Sabrina, what other techniques you see coming up in cannabis cultivation?
Well, at this point, we are working with a combination of techniques, to be honest, in some of the what you were mentioning before. I have a great opportunity to work in the future, let's put it that way. What I launched today as a company, as part of my company, I was developing 2 years ago. We went through all the processes of scaling it up, getting it ready for the market, getting it ready to provide it to clients and actually work with no problems. So currently, I see projects where I am working with all of these techniques combined. I'm running no veg, full spectral imagery running on top of these crops, seeing the plants every day, every minute. I get numbers out every 5 minutes if necessary. We can track cannabinoids. We can track if there's viruses coming in. We get notifications of a spot of powdery mildew anywhere, right? I have all of these combined. And these are combined with sensors of irrigation that track your irrigation, that track how much your blocks your substrate has in water content, EC, pH, you name it. The combination of all of these factors together, how you analyze this data, how you get to understand your crop is amazing. At this point, I can do no veg and reach 100 grams on a plant if I choose the right irrigation set points, the right substrate size, the right variety to grow it. This is the future of cannabis, is to actually understand how to use the data that is being provided by all of these concepts. But we need to trust them and we need to invest on them. At this point, what Alex was mentioning is one of the biggest struggles I see in the majority of the companies. They are bringing imagery into this realm. It's very hard to convince the growers that this works. No, it shouldn't be a matter of does this work. It does work. We can see it. We have been using it. Now many of these companies, what they need is the help of clients to actually trust that these are providing information that they can use. The same with the PCR. You can use it to track how your work is going, where you can improve it, where you can find the spots where you get dirtier than you should, stuff like that. You can always use it. Take advantage of these techniques, even if they are not on the requirements in the end, they get you there. And those all work together. That's how I see it in the future. It's like nowadays, I work with techniques that I hope people embrace more, because together they get you there. It's quite incredible to see.
Yeah, you already mentioned about spectral imaging, live monitoring plans. What is your view on that, Rui? Is that something to add on what you're already doing and for steering in the growing, or you think it will be a major part of actually instead of testing?
Well, the testing at the end, the test weapon to release product, if we are in GMP. But continuous monitoring techniques, it's the future, of course. In terms of all these cameras, I'm not in this, but in 2019 I was actually analyzing startup from Carnegie Mellon University. It was not in drones. It was very funny to learn now that this was in drones. At that time they were putting it in small tractors and going through the outdoors in a big post, the camera, and it was simply a near infrared and visible range cameras. I see that now they are far more advanced, and having in a indoor a drone doing that, it's a dream. It's fantastic. It's the way to go. Absolutely. If one company went down, surely many other will come.
I just want to add one thing on this, because in case people don't know, it goes really close to my heart, because I did my PhD with imagery more than 10 years ago. These techniques work. They don't replace each other. They are complementary to each other. You are not going to use a camera to stop checking for your contaminants, to stop to check for your other. They complement each other. An image will say, this is off of what you're looking for. For some reason it's off. Go check it out. You go there. It will help you with your scouting. It will help you with your irrigation. Your leaves are tilted worse than the usual. Why? Why is that this area always less than the rest, right? It starts pointing you out to things that you cannot see. I see things 2 weeks ahead of time. It's quite precise in that sense. It's quite remarkable. They don't replace each other. They complement each other. That's how you need to see it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that sentiment. I think in Canada, where we kind of took the path on federal legalization and tremendous amount of capital going into infrastructure and how to design a facility, and really making that transition from the legacy era where it was more egos and bro science in the grow room and trying to figure things out, to scaling it up. And when you scale that up, you get access to so much data that you've never had before. And learning how to break down your processes and learning how to learn again about cannabis cultivation and not sticking to just old ways and assuming that's always the best, and integrating that data into your company's maturity is a huge thing. So these things are complementary, and we're at that precipice now where cannabis companies that will move forward in Canada will integrate this data, and they will reflect it to their processes and practices. It's an ever-learning thing, and in that way you are only as good as your last batch, and we're so fortunate with all this data collection now that you can really sit down with your team on a weekly basis, review these things, and whether it's through photo technology and different types of analytics that can come from that, they're just these tools that help you bring your team together and truly refine what you do.
Yeah, it's actually a good point also, data collection. I was discussing earlier this week with Alexander a lot about it, that sometimes people talk about AI and what can we do, but then you go into the grow room and you see that the climate box is, for example, hanging against the wall instead of at plant level. So the data you're getting is anyway useless. So it's nice, it's the next big thing and we can use it. It's connecting the dots, but you need to have the right data in order to make informed decisions and do something with it. Yes. And I think you had some clear examples as well. Is that, Alexander?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, I mean, not to... I'm going to repeat myself from the last panel we did, but AI and technology is knowledge, human is wisdom. Knowledge is nothing without the wisdom to use it correctly. And the reality is you can go on a website called Aranet. Aranet has a shit ton of sensor, and you can let your IT guy go wild and create stuff. So the real issue with new technology, especially when we try to implement it, first and foremost, is human. I think there's a lot of CEO probably in the room. You would be number one. If the CEO himself does not believe in new technology and understand the steps of implementing a new technology, the team never will, and it will never go through the hoops, right? Then there's your QA team that also sometimes doesn't like new technology because that means rewriting SOP and this and that. So adopting new technology needs to be a conscious effort from the executive team, from the board, from the company, and it trickles down. Trust me, with AI, I've seen it. The last time I've hit a wall of nonsense against the technology was when I was trying to promote cannabis right before legalization. I'm hitting, people are all afraid they're going to lose their job to AI somehow, or that we're not going to do anything anymore as humans, or we're all going to get killed. It's very, very weird. But there is a big ego in place that's preventing people from trying and adopting new technology, and often is the lead to their failure. Just like Sunny said, it's all great to have all of that, but if your sensor is in the wrong place and you don't take the time to analyze that, you're just going to get mad at the technology provider, say it's all garbage, throw it out the room, waste your investors' money, and etc. So that needs to be the key point. If you want to be a leading company, it needs to be a mindset, and you're not going to win them all. As say, I found a beautiful technology in Neatleaf. It was a dream. To this day, I talk about it, and I'm trying to find partners to redo it, but that company unfortunately went out of business. So that's part of being pioneers. But often, pioneers, when you have the right team of people that understand how to adapt new technology, will get you the competitive edge, competitive advantage, and that little extra to be profitable and be an example to the rest of the industry.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Looking to the time, I think we should see if there are some questions from the audience for you guys. I'm pretty sure they are.
Let's hear it for the panel, first of all. My man in the back had his hand up first. He was ready. So I'm coming for you. Here I come. Wait, no, he in the back. He was really quick, but then you're second, all right? Oh, they got to get me a scooter. There we go. Un moto.
Thank you. Yeah, my question is for the cultivators on the panel mostly. What are your biggest, for Chris at Atlantic, what's your biggest pain point that you think technology can solve and make your life easier?
Well, with the adaptation of learning really how to crop steer, and actually give a lot of props to our nutrient company at the time, Thena, which we still use. They helped us develop our program. That's something that I didn't do in the legacy days, and it's very data-driven with the obviously independent sensors outside of your in buildings automation or environmental system. So you got to use that data and then go back to your environmental system and dial in the shot sizes to hit your P1 saturation and then your drybacks. So it's a very data-driven process with multiple systems that aren't integrated. And like Alex has said, I think there's a beautiful place for AI or any type of integration of these multiple sets of data to help drive decisions and hopefully one day drive the decision that I could walk away from the facility and it just does its own thing. But that would be great.
Yeah, pretty much everything. So I'm gearing toward every single plant in my facility being under supervision 24/7 from some form of technology. But beyond that, giving access to, let's say, Microsoft Copilot to your entire network, to your entire SOP, having QA agents live downstairs so anybody can word in their own words what's the problem, what's going on, and have a clear answer. The problem with SOPs is they're boring. Nobody wants to read that. There's like 3 pages of nonsense for people that aren't trained in that before you get to the actual steps of what you need to do. So the problem is we all get lost in translation. By all speaking the same language and using that automation and those AI to translate it and basically make everybody on the same level of SOPs, you're going to get a far more productive team to then achieve perfection.
If I may add something, for anybody in this room, if they wonder where to start, I will ask to do at least 2 things. Get PAR sensors spread into your rooms. See the right light levels on your plants. Because sometimes you think you're getting an intensity of light in your plants that you're not, and you're doing your irrigations and whatnot. They were not based on the wrong numbers. Get those in. Second step, do not underestimate having irrigation sensors. Having those in your substrates gives you a window of knowledge that is ridiculous, because depending on the intensities you use, when you dim it up, you dim it down, the plant will react to the amount of irrigations you need, what type of water content, pH, and so on you get to a power of steering that gets you a much higher value for your money. I kid you not, those 2 get you halfway. If you don't know where to start there. That's my advice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. This guy here.
Thank you. 2 quick questions. First one about those new LED lights. They have this harvest mode, which enables UV light for example, 2 last weeks of the grow. Could you comment it if it's only marketing or it's something really we can do it? And the second question is about the cultivation technology in medical cannabis. Which will you recommend to get every time, every batch, the consistent amount of cannabinoids? Thank you.
UV in lights is a discussion, a big discussion. If you have UV in your lights, it will cost you kilowatts. Therefore, in the Signify brand, we are very clear on keeping away from UV as much as possible. You will get more money for your LEDs without the UVs. If you work with good climate and so on, you don't need to worry much about the UVs at this point. For what we know and understand of the crop, all these processes are in place to get you there really, really well without the need of UV. Why are we concerned about the usage of UV? Is that the moment that you start getting UVs, being UVA, UVB, or UVC into your systems, you start getting into levels of yet SOPs and regulations and so on for security of your staff. Do you need it is the question. So if a client comes to us, we will ask, why do you need it? What are you looking for? If you're using UV or wanting UV to trigger your cannabinoids, forget it. At this point, that's not there yet, not even close. Leave it to the researchers to understand where and how and so on. It's not there yet, not even close. If you want to use it for cleaning, that's a different ballpark. And there it works, but obviously work with the right technology to work it out. Don't underestimate it, but follow instructions, because UV is quite risky.
As I know, Sabrina, at this moment a PhD student at Wagner University is busy with UV in cannabis.
And his conclusion is exactly the same. It's like, it could work, but the levels of UV that he's using is not commercially viable. Those LEDs put into those lamps at those levels is so expensive at this point. It costs you so many kilowatts that I can tell you, for a client, a commercial, like they are, I say is not worth it yet. Technology that needs evolving. You have much more interesting technologies to focus on at this point, in my experience so far. But I don't talk for other LED providers in that sense. Bear that in mind, okay? So.
All right. Guys, I think we need to round off here.
We do. We're out of time. Let's hear it one more time for our entire panel. That was great. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes. Yes. Listen, AI is cool. Computers will never replace hippies when it comes to growing weed. Right? But you can work together. You can work together. Hippies like computers as well. Some of them. This is the International Cannabis Business Conference 2025 Barcelona. All right? Party tonight at the Sky Bar, which is atop the 45 Hotel, which is in the Plaza Catalunya.